Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Today's topic is one every man needs to hear, especially if you're serious about building a healthy, lasting relationship. Too often, men overlook subtle signs that a woman is not emotionally available, not interested in mutual respect, or not ready for partnership. And the most significant reason, because they ignore the words she's saying. Here's the thing, women may not always say precisely what they mean, but they always mean what they say. If you listen closely, her words can reveal her mindset, values, and relationship views. Unfortunately, many men fall into the trap of excusing red flags, telling themselves things like, "She's just stressed," or "She didn't mean it like that." But this habit of rationalizing will cost you more than just time. It can wear down your confidence, emotional well-being, and sense of self. This video isn't about blame or bitterness. It's a wake-up call. We're going to break down 5 specific phrases that, when spoken by a woman, should give you pause, because they often point to deeper emotional immaturity, lack of accountability, or even quiet forms of manipulation. These aren't quirks or just how she is. They indicate how you'll be treated long-term. The goal today is simple: to help you recognize when it's time to stop trying to prove yourself and start protecting your peace. So stay with us until the end, because understanding these red flags could save you from years of frustration and make room for the kind of connection you genuinely deserve. Let's dive in. Number 1. We don't need to define this. When a woman says, "We don't need to define this," it can sound refreshing, even liberating, in a culture that often rushes into labels. But for a man genuinely seeking connection, it's a signal worth hearing beneath the surface. She says, "I want the benefits of closeness, without the commitment that comes with it." That ambiguity allows her to stay emotionally unaccountable while keeping you around, just enough to meet her needs in the moment. You become a comfort, a distraction, a backup plan, not a priority. The truth is that women who are emotionally invested don't fear clarity, they welcome it. They ask what the two of you are. They want to know where things are going because they care about the outcome. Conversely, vagueness is often a calculated form of freedom. Freedom to explore other connections while leaning on yours for emotional support or intimacy when convenient. It's not that she's unsure of what she wants, it's that she's sure enough to know you're not it right now. And here's where the damage begins for the man. You start attaching emotionally to something that isn't reciprocated. You show loyalty to a connection she doesn't intend to deepen. You commit in silence, hoping your consistency will win her clarity, but she interprets that silence as permission to keep you undefined. It's like accepting a job offer where your boss refuses to tell you your role or pay, but still expects you to show up and work overtime. Eventually you burn out, not because you loved too hard, but because you invested without knowing the terms. A relationship without structure leads to confusion and a lack of freedom. In its early stages, yes, some uncertainty is standard. But if weeks or months pass and she still avoids labeling or defining what you are to each other, it's time to stop assuming and start listening. A woman who values you won't gamble with your emotional clarity. She won't risk losing a man she respects just to keep her options open. You don't negotiate commitment. You either share it or you walk. If she sidesteps the conversation more than once, she's already given you her answer. And it's not no, it's not you right now. Respect that answer enough to leave, not in bitterness but in strength. Because being an option is never the role of a man who knows his worth. Number 2, take me as I am. It sounds empowering. Take me as I am echoes with themes of authenticity and vulnerability, the language that suggests a woman comfortable in her skin. But when used in a toxic context, this phrase stops being about honest self-acceptance and becomes a defense mechanism, one that shuts down growth, accountability, and mutual respect. A woman who uses "that's just how I am" as a shield isn't embracing herself with love. She's rejecting the need to change. You might voice concern about something small like her chronic lateness or how she speaks to you during disagreements, only to be met with indifference or deflection. In her world, criticism equals rejection, and compromise feels like a betrayal of the self. She confuses confidence with stubbornness and self-worth with emotional entitlement. This attitude doesn't just affect day-to-day interactions. It bleeds into how she handles conflict, intimacy, and even your emotional needs. You might try to address issues with patience and clarity, hoping for dialogue, but instead, you're met with a wall. She expects understanding without offering it in return. Over time, the dynamic becomes one-sided. You're expected to adapt while she stays the same. Emotional intimacy can't grow where accountability is absent. Relationships require both people to reflect, adjust, and support each other's evolution. But when one partner refuses to grow, it creates an emotional imbalance. You'll find yourself shrinking, overcompensating, or second-guessing valid feelings just to avoid her defensiveness. Eventually you realize what she's saying is, "I'm not willing to meet you halfway." A healthy woman might say, "This is something I struggle with, but I want to get better." That kind of honesty leaves room for change and connection. But the one who hides behind "take me as I am" as a fixed identity is saying, "I'm not willing to grow with you." The lesson here is simple but powerful. Don't confuse emotional immaturity for strength. True confidence invites growth, not avoidance. And true love doesn't require you to carry both people's emotional labor. Sometimes, the strongest move you can make is to walk away from someone who insists you accept what they refuse to examine, because love isn't about tolerating a lack of effort. It's about building something with someone willing to try. Number 3. You're lucky to have me. At first you might think she's just confident. She knows her worth. And there's something undeniably attractive about a woman who carries herself with that kind of self-assurance. You're drawn to her energy, presence, and how she effortlessly commands attention. But as time goes on, a subtle shift begins to take place. That confidence starts to feel more like an entitlement. Rather than showing mutual respect and care, her actions imply that you should feel lucky to have her in your life, just for being with her. In this dynamic, it's not about mutual appreciation. She believes that simply being in her presence should be enough for you to appreciate her. She might not say it directly, but her actions speak volumes. You're the one who should be grateful for her time, her affection, and even her attention. Instead of creating an equal space where both partners feel valued, the power dynamic tilts. You become the one constantly striving to prove your worth, to earn her love and validation. What starts as a seemingly confident attitude soon feels like a relentless chase. She holds all the power while you are expected to bend, adjust, and compromise. The problem is that this dynamic is fundamentally imbalanced. It's not that she is evil, it's that she has been conditioned to think that relationships work when she is the one who holds all the cards. But in reality, relationships require give and take, not just one person constantly taking. Her behavior patterns will start to show. She dismisses your needs because in her mind she's already doing you a favor by being with you. She might not have to put in the same effort or emotional investment because her presence should be enough. The relationship becomes about her, and if things aren't on her terms, she might pull back or even make you feel like you need to prove yourself more. Meanwhile, your needs get pushed to the background. This mindset creates a dangerous precedent. Instead of building a healthy, reciprocal relationship, you feel like you're never enough. You become caught in a cycle of overcompensating, apologizing, and trying to win her affection. It's exhausting. It's not a partnership, it's a one-sided dynamic that leaves you feeling replaceable instead of cherished. The key to any successful relationship is mutual respect. Both partners should feel lucky to have each other, not just one person who expects the other to work harder to keep the relationship afloat constantly. You deserve someone who values you as much as you value them. So, when faced with someone who wears entitlement as confidence, it's essential to ask yourself, does she make me feel valued, or does she make me feel like I'm chasing her affection? A healthy relationship is built on equality, where both people try to grow together. If you're constantly putting in more than you're getting, it's time to take a step back and evaluate if you're truly being appreciated for who you are. Walk away from relationships where you're made to feel lucky for receiving crumbs of affection. The right person will make you feel like you're both fortunate to have found each other, not that you're lucky just to be in the game. Number 4. All my exes were the problem. When a woman opens up about her past relationships, it's common to hear her describe her exes as the source of all the issues. All my exes were toxic, she may say, or they were crazy. They didn't understand me. On the surface, this may seem like a natural reaction to bad experiences. Perhaps she's had bad luck with men or hasn't met the right person. But if you listen closely, this narrative reveals something much deeper about her relationship approach, and you need to pay attention to the underlying message. What she's telling you is that she lacks the introspection necessary to understand her role in past breakups. Suppose every single one of her exes is to blame for the problems in her relationships. In that case, it suggests that she has never fully considered the possibility that she might have contributed to those issues. Relationships are a two-way street, and both parties play a role in how they evolve, thrive, or falter. When someone consistently places all the blame on their past partners, it's a sign that they are unwilling, or perhaps unable, to look inward and take responsibility for their actions. This mindset becomes dangerous for several reasons. For one, it prevents her from learning valuable lessons from her past mistakes. She will likely repeat the same patterns if she refuses to examine what went wrong in her previous relationships. Worse yet, if you end up in a relationship with her, you may be caught in the same destructive cycle. You could become the next villain in her story, blamed for the breakup when things inevitably fall apart. And this doesn't happen once or twice. It's a recurring theme, part of a much larger pattern. What often happens next is that the man, believing he's the good guy, steps into the situation thinking he can save her. He believes that by being patient, loving, or understanding, he can heal her wounds and be the exception to the rule. But this is a dangerous trap. When a woman hasn't learned from her past, she will repeat the same mistakes. You may walk into a relationship where she is the constant, and every relationship before you is merely a footnote in her ongoing tale of victimhood. She never truly reflects on her part in those relationships, and you may become a casualty of this unresolved emotional baggage. The mistake here is the assumption that you can fix her and the belief that her past relationships are one-dimensional. By seeing every ex as a problem, without looking at the underlying dynamics, you are pulling yourself into a cycle that's not yours to fix. You'll end up constantly fighting an uphill battle where you can never quite measure up to the expectations of being her emotional savior. This is why it's so important to recognize the difference between an emotionally mature woman and one who continues to shift the blame. A mature woman will understand that relationships are not about perfect partners, but individuals working together to create something healthy and lasting. She can say, "I made mistakes too, and I've learned from them." This kind of introspection shows an understanding that relationships are not about assigning blame to the other person, but acknowledging one's role in the dynamic. It takes humility, emotional awareness, and a willingness to grow. When a woman can acknowledge her flaws and the lessons she's learnt, it demonstrates a level of self-awareness that can only benefit the relationship. She understands that people are imperfect and that conflict is natural in any relationship, but she also knows that the key to a healthy relationship is taking responsibility for her actions, understanding her needs, and working with her partner to create a balanced, supportive dynamic. On the other hand, if a woman refuses to take responsibility for her part in past relationships, you need to proceed with caution. If she continues blaming her exes without recognizing her mistakes, she will likely do the same with you when the relationship faces challenges. The blame will shift from one ex to the next, and you may receive the same criticism when things fall apart. In such cases, you must recognize that you are not responsible for fixing her past. You are not her emotional caretaker, and you certainly should not be the next person she uses as a scapegoat for her unresolved issues. The best thing you can do is protect your emotional health. If she consistently avoids accountability and refuses to reflect on her role in past breakups, it's time to walk away. Don't think that you are the exception or that your love will be enough to change her. If she's unwilling to learn from her mistakes, she will continue to make the same mistakes, and you'll only end up hurt in the process. A healthy relationship is built on mutual understanding, respect, and accountability. If she's not willing to take responsibility for her actions, then it's likely that she will never be able to offer you the same. It's crucial to recognize the red flags early on and decide to move forward with someone who can engage in meaningful self-reflection. You deserve better if she's stuck in a pattern of blaming others and avoiding personal growth. Number 5. If you loved me, you would. In the world of relationships, words hold power. The phrase, "if you loved me, you would," is one of the most subtle and yet damaging forms of emotional manipulation that often goes unnoticed until it's too late. On the surface, it may seem like a simple request, a way for her to express her desires or needs, but it's a carefully crafted tool designed to put you in a bind. It's not about her love for you, it's about control. At its core, this phrase is a form of emotional blackmail. It's not a genuine plea for affection or understanding. It's a tactic to make you feel guilty for not complying with her wishes. When she says, "if you loved me, you'd cancel your plans," she's attaching your love to your obedience. She's creating a test, an emotional hurdle you must overcome to prove your worthiness as a partner. And if you don't, the implication is clear: you don't love her enough. The manipulation lies in how she makes you feel when setting boundaries. "If you loved me, you'd stop talking to your female friends," or "if you loved me, you'd buy me this," is not an expression of desire, but a calculated move to make you question your feelings. By asking you to prove your love through actions that cater to her needs or desires, she makes you feel like the bad guy for refusing. This creates a psychological trap where you constantly feel as though you must prove your love, always passing emotional tests to be seen as worthy of affection. This pattern can be hazardous. Over time, your boundaries fade as you prioritize her needs over your own. What started as a small request turned into a cycle of constant compliance, and before long, your identity becomes entangled in trying to meet her demands so that you might lose sight of your wants and needs. You define yourself by how much you are willing to give or sacrifice in the name of love. But this isn't love, it's manipulation. A healthy relationship isn't based on meeting conditions or passing tests. Love should not be a game with rules where only one person holds the power. It's based on trust, respect, and mutual care. Values built over time through honest communication and shared experiences, not guilt-driven compliance. In a relationship that thrives, both partners feel valued and are willing to give and receive equally, and neither uses love to control the other. If you find yourself where "if you loved me you would" becomes a recurring theme, it's time to step back and assess the situation. Don't let emotional manipulation dictate your actions. Stand your ground, and don't be afraid to say no. If you allow these manipulations to continue, you risk losing yourself in a relationship that isn't built on healthy foundations. Remember, love should never feel like an obligation. It should feel like freedom, understanding, and the joy of sharing life, not a test of your worth. Conclusion: love shouldn't be a test. In the end, relationships thrive not on emotional tests or manipulation, but on mutual respect, emotional maturity, and shared growth. Suppose a woman repeatedly shows an unwillingness to take accountability, respect your boundaries, or build a genuine partnership. In that case, the most self-loving thing you can do is walk away. Staying in a dynamic where your worth is constantly questioned, your efforts are undervalued, or your love is used as leverage, only leads to emotional exhaustion. You cannot fix someone who doesn't want to grow. You cannot build a healthy future with someone who sees you as a tool rather than a teammate. And you should never have to prove your value to someone who truly cares, because real love doesn't require tests, ultimatums, or guilt trips. It invites honesty, safety, and growth. So, if you recognize these red flags, don't ignore them. Protect your peace, preserve your self-worth, and remember that walking away isn't giving up, choosing yourself. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced these phrases in a relationship? How did you handle it, and what did you learn? Share your stories and insights in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more real talk on relationships, self-respect, and emotional wellness. See you in the next one.